Hi, this is Regeline Sabat, also known as Gigi. You're listening to Walk With Me podcast. My guest today is Pamela Aubrey. Pamela is a domestic violence survivor, an advocate, and an EFT practitioner. Welcome to the show, Pamela.
Thank you so much for having me. It's an honor to be here, Gigi.
It's an honor to have you here today. Now, why don't you start off by telling us about you and where you are from?
All right. Well, I currently live in Idaho. Originally, I grew up in Wyoming, so not too far away from Idaho. And I've been kind of here, there, and everywhere it seems like in my life. But that's home right now, so I'm enjoying it.
I love it. Now, you are a domestic violence survivor. Talk to us more about how you overcame domestic violence.
Yeah, obviously, it's a journey that's different for everyone. It looks different for everyone. But for me, it really took having a major crisis in my life. And what that really meant was I kind of had an emotional, mental, spiritual breakdown because of the experiences that I had been through. And at that point in time, my ex and I actually split up. And so, I was really like at the lowest point of my life with no support system. And so I kind of had to just figure out, okay, how am I going to survive this, right? And I reached out to some members of my family. Unfortunately, there were a couple of them that said, you know what, why don't you do this? Why don't you consider going to see some of these doctors? And then I had a cousin that said, come stay with us. We want to be able to help you kind of get through this time period. And so I did that. I went and stayed with them for a few weeks. I actually took my very young son with me and went to see these doctors. And that was a huge turning point for me because I not only, was dealing with like the emotional issues that had gone along with what had happened, but at the same time, I was dealing with some physical issues, and it was sort of like the perfect storm. And, if you've ever been in a relationship with someone who doesn't support you, the minute, you're not the rock, you're not there, they're out the door, right? And so he was, AWOL by then. And so, for me, it was really, okay, how do I start picking up the pieces and putting things back together? And so that's how I started to do it. I started to reach out to the people around me that I did know would support me.
That is truly inspiring. And what inspired you to become a domestic violence advocate?
I think, just going through the experiences that I did really helped me to understand it from the inside, because prior to going through some of what I went through, I didn't really understand why you would stay in a situation that was bad. It was hard for me to comprehend that. But after going through some of the things that I've gone through now, I have a totally different perspective on why people stay in relationships that are not only not supportive, but can be abusive. And so I think it's, for me, it's a way of taking what I've learned from my own life and giving back.
Very powerful. Now, you are known to the world as a healer, but it took you many years to discover this after facing your own challenges. Talk to us more about your challenge of overcoming being an adoptee.
Yeah, it was really around the same time that I was going through all of this that I started to kind of understand, okay, maybe there's some things here that are playing into what's happened in my life. Why have I chosen the people that I have? Why have I gone down this road? And so as the years went on, I started to really examine that and try to understand it in a deeper way. And in doing so, it helped me to kind of understand that there were some underlying, beliefs that I had. There were some underlying, thought patterns and the things that seemed to me to be the right way about going about relationships really wasn't, but it was coming from this place of abandonment early in my life. And so, for me to come to a place of understanding that and then being able to figure out, okay, how do I do the work around it? How do I begin to heal? Because what's very interesting is that in the world of psychology and therapy, there are almost no therapists that deal specifically with adoptees. And it's because there's a lack of research, there's a lack of understanding, and there's a lack of really knowledge as to how do we help adoptees to deal with some of the issues they face.
Absolutely amazing. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Absolutely.
Now, tell us more about another major challenge that you had to overcome in your life, such as an illness.
Yeah, so it's really interesting. When I was going through college, I actually, towards the end of my senior year, got very sick. And I had had chronic sinus infections that whole year and kept going to the doctor, and they would give me antibiotics over and over and over. And it ultimately just kind of like wiped out my digestive tract of all the good bacteria. And I got really sick. And I ended up with mono. And so I started going to these doctors that my family was familiar with, and some of them are chiropractors and kinesiologists. But once I tapped into this world of alternative healthcare, I suddenly realized, okay, there's a whole different world out here that has these resources, has these tools that literally saved my life. And so at that point, I really started to look differently at the way I ate, the way I took care of myself. I started to understand things in a different way. And mind you, I mean, I had been a nursing student for a couple of years. I wasn't totally ignorant. I understood the body. I had classes in nutrition. I had taken anatomy and biology and microbiology. And so I had a sense for, what our bodies are supposed to do. But when it came to my body, it just kind of like, what's going on? It's just not working the way it's supposed to, and I really needed help to get it there. And so by tapping into some of these resources, then I was able to start to heal from that. But that being said, there were still some underlying issues, and many people don't know this, but once you have Epstein-Barr, you don't ever get rid of it. It actually stays in your body, and so you deal with some of the effects of that long term. And so it's important for you to understand how to care for yourself. So, I could go in really deep with that. I won't do that here. It's not the time and place, but, that was a big challenge for me. And it did, it did play into other things that I dealt with then later on down the road as well.
I love it. Very inspiring. Now, tell us more about a time in your life where you experienced an aha moment.
This is so great. Okay, so one of my favorite aha moments came in about 2015, and I had been doing these Reiki circles. And one of the reasons I had started to go to these was because of a lot of what was going on in my life, and me wanting to evolve, me wanting to go to a different place, to move to a different space in my life, and trying to figure out how to do that. And so I started attending these circles, and all of a sudden it was like it tapped me back into some things I had learned when I was going to massage school several years prior. And all of a sudden it was like there was this connection with my mind and body that made sense. And I thought, this stuff is really helping. This actually really works. And so I started learning how to use it for myself, and then, just for friends and family, the people around me. And it was giving me such great benefit. And at that point, it was really like, okay, there's something to this whole energy healing world. What is this? And so that was when I really jumped in.
I love it. Very powerful. Now, what is your best advice to the audience for walking with purpose and living a life of happiness?
That's such a great question. And, I think that there's a lot of answers to that. We're all a little different. We're all individuals, and we have things that work for us better than they might work for someone else. So I think the first step is understanding that your exact blueprint isn't going to look exactly like someone else's, right? That you have to do some homework, you have to do some research, you have to take some real ownership over what that needs to look like in your life, and then start to put things into place that do work for you. And it does take time, and it does take a sense of purposefulness. It's not like you're going to go wake up one day and go, I really want my life to change, I really want it to shift, and so I'm just going to do this, this, and this, right? It's a process. And I know you've been through this yourself. And I know that you've had to do that work. You've had to explore. You've had to do your own personal research to figure out what works. And I think that's really important for people to understand. Also, I would say along with that, don't put yourself in a box, and don't put limitations on what might work and what might not work. keep an open mind as you do that research and allow yourself to explore and figure out, okay, what does really work.
I love it. Pamela, thank you for being a guest on Walk With Me podcast. Now, where can the audience find you?
They can find me on my website, risingenergy.com. They can also find me on Facebook at Pamela Aubrey and on Instagram at Real Pamela Aubrey. The easiest way to get in touch with me, really, though, is just to go on my website, and there's a button right there on the front page, and you can set an appointment with me. It's free. Your consultation, your first appointment with me is always free. So it's quick and easy.
I love it. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure to check out Pamela at risingenergy.com. And that's INNERGY. And Pamela,
Yes.
thanks for being a guest on Walk With Me podcast. You have a blessed day.
Thank you. You as well.